Hi, I'm Donna Dewberry, the original creator of the one-stroke painting technique. In our Let's Paint program, which is FolkArt One Stroke Hometown, we are going to do different paintings every month that include hometown themes that you might see. And to do those programs, we have a wonderful kit so you can paint along with me all year. That kit is on plaidonline.com/Let's Paint, and you can find everything you want to find and the kit to be painting along with me. So today what we're going to be working on in our lesson is February. And in February, we're going to do Every Farm Begins with a Barn. And this barn painting is a landscape. And when we do landscapes, there's little tricks I'm going to teach you in the lesson that are going to help it be so fun to do. We're going to do the background, which is the sky and the different shades in the sky. We're going to paint a barn. We're going to do lettering, and we're going to use a paintbrush. That's my favorite brush to do a lot of fun scruffing with. So aren't you excited? I am. So let's go to the studio and let's get started. Okay, are you ready? I'm excited because in every hometown, there's usually a farm. And on those farms, I love the barns. So I thought this would be a great landscape to add to our hometown collection. Now, what we're going to do first is look in the landscape. We're going to look at the background. And so think about way in that background. This is what we're focusing on, from the sky to the sunrise to the ground cover. All right. So that's going to make it easy for you. I have taken and put this painting on an arch top wood sign. So the thing is, you can get any kind of signage that you might find out there, or palette, or whatever you want to paint on, or a canvas. All right. So let's look at the colors we're going to use first. We're using multi-surface colors. FolkArt multi-surface is wonderful. It's got a sealer. It's going to give you a nice background. And as we paint on top of it, it will make a nice finish to do all the fine detail on top of it too, as it dries. So what I've got going here is my sky colors, which we have Prussian blue and wicker white. Then we're going to bring in some pink into that. So I used magenta with wicker white. And you might notice with one-stroke painting, a lot of the one-stroke painting is having a very light color. And we multi-load the brush or whatever colors we're doing with a light and go from a really dark color. All right. So I just don't bring in a baby pink color. All right. So then we're going to go to the ground cover, which we have sap green, citrus green, and yellow ochre. And so as we're putting this on, I'm going to remind you of those colors. Really important is the FolkArt floating medium. And that floating medium is going to be what we use instead of water. So don't use water. We're going to take, and if we need it to move better, if the wood absorbs it quicker, what you're going to want to do is get a little bit more medium, and it's always going to be right here in the middle. All right. I have this in my double loader. We're not really double loading on here right now, but that's going to be my cubby for my backgrounds. All right. Now, what we do in the beginning is that we dampen our brush, and then we lay it on the paper towel and dry it out. So I want to show you that process, because lots of people grab the brush and they wring it out like this. Don't do that. All right. I want to go into my water, especially if it's a new set of brushes. It's got sizing in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay this on here and be ready to start loading. All right. So when I get ready to decide these colors, and so you don't have to remember what I just said verbally, I want you to pull out your reusable teaching guide. And in here, it lists the colors. Not only does it list the brushes and colors here, but we're going to also go over here and look at what size brush it says to use first thing. And then it tells you right here, let's start with the wicker white and the Prussian blue. All right. And then we'll go, it'll tell you what to do with the fluffy clouds and so on. So this is going to be your guide. Even though you can watch this video over and over, I want you to stop the video in between session steps that you're going to do. And then at that time is a good time to go and check, am I doing this? And I've showed you the blue, the pink, the sunrise, and the green right there on the guide. All right, so keep that handy guide right there next to you. And it's reusable, so you can wipe it with a wet paper towel and stroke right on it if you want as you're practicing. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to pick up these two colors here first, the Prussian blue and the wicker white. So I'm going to grab some of this, and I'm going to get the color right here that I want. All right, now what you're going to see is I'm going to have a lot of wicker white, because I want enough paint mixed so that you don't get partway through and go, oh, I've got to try to match that. All right, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of Prussian because I'm going for the Prussian blue. I'm going for a light blue background, sky. And I want the blue just right so that the white cloud will still show. All right, so see, I'm mixing that color around. I'm not going into the medium yet, but I might do a little bit more of the blue so that, like I said, the clouds show better. So I have stroked the colors right here so that it's going to really help you to see, am I getting that color? Is it the color? I did this stroke with a 12, but I'm showing you with a 3/4 that I matched that color pretty darn close. All right, so I also like you to have a eraser, and my eraser is folded paper towels, and I dampen the corner in water, okay? And then because of the nature of this multi-surface paint, it dries and doesn't come off. What I want you to do is, as soon as you practice your strokes on here, just take your eraser and wipe it off, okay? I'll leave that there so we can have it to go. All right, so let's start. We're going to pick up, I've got all that paint in that brush, so I have a good start. I just picked up a little bit of medium to get me going, and I'm going to start right along here. But what I want you to see as I'm doing this is that I don't have to worry about these edges, because inevitably I always get some on there. And we later go in here and we put a trim color and another color on top so we can cover all that. Or you could tape it, but since we're going to put that trim, we don't have to worry about it. All right, so the wood's going to absorb it pretty darn quick. What I should do is, first of all, let me put my brush over here. First of all, I decide where the horizon is, which is very important. The horizon can be at any spot in here. Like if I'm doing underwater, I'd go way up here, and that would be my horizon, the water line. But what I'm doing here is I kind of gauge about halfway, and I put a pencil line there, and I just kind of sketch it across here. What you would do, though, is that you can measure. See my little bow here? You can measure. It's going to be right here, come over here. All right, and then just make a rough line across here so we pretty much have a straight horizon. Now, it doesn't matter right behind the barn, but I want it to have a peep over here and all of this under here showing. Now, that's just going to be where I'm going to take my horizon to, and that'll matter when we do our sunrise, okay? This floating medium is going to be your best friend when you're doing the backgrounds. All right, back and forth, and empty the brush on to the wood. And I like movement in it, so it's fun to have some light, some dark. So what I don't want you to do is worry about putting 2 or 3 coats, because I think what happens is that you get this real solid look, and what I like is when the wood absorbs some of the paint and you get different shades. So I call that movement. I like to see movement in the background. So I'm going around these edges right here, and then I'm picking up medium to work it in. All right, and I don't want raw wood to show behind through there. All right, so you have to keep putting it on here and straight back and forth. You saw me do a little bit of this stuff here. Well, then I have to straighten that out when I get over here and make sure that it is straight coming from there. Okay? Now, if I'm blending colors in the colors, what I wouldn't want to do is leave it straight like this. So what I do is I sometimes chisel, which means turn the brush sideways instead of all flat. And I try never to quit the stroke on a flat edge. Now we're going to come over here again. And the reason I really need to pick up my floating medium, as you can see, it's sucking it right up there. So the floating medium helps you not have those spots. Okay? Now, see, that whole big puddle went pretty fast. So I do have to come over here now. And there's enough white there to just bring it into here now. Just mix a little bit more. So that helps me gauge. So next time I will know that, oh, I need to really make sure I have plenty. Then you can go back to your teaching guide to make sure you've got that blue the same color again. Medium. And you're going to love the Prussian blue because it gives you a rich, dark color all the way to this pretty soft powder blue. So it's a really great color for all the different projects we're going to be doing from dark to light. Keep picking up my medium. All right, now I'm going to come on down to the horizon pretty much, but I don't have to be heavy right in here. Actually, I can pick up some of that white tone that is on the edges of my little cubby here. All right. Now I'm going to put the pink in here too, like I said. So let's pick up a little bit more medium. And you don't have to worry, see this paint in the medium? It doesn't hurt anything because it's got so much medium. It's just going to be a tinge of color unless it was black or some predominant color. So the floating medium is going to be your best friend. Stay away from water. Unless you're using your script liner. Okay, so I'm okay with a little bit. As this dries, you might see you might want to come back and add a few more bits of floating medium with the color here and there. But as it dries, you can really tell. My clouds come on after I get this all in here. See the spots in here? Oh, there's some really... Now, this had a little divot in the wood, if you're seeing that. There we go. And when I was all done, I ended up coming, a last minute thing I do on my project is deciding what else it needs. And what we did see when this was all done is we wanted to bring some shading along here, which the Prussian blue a lot darker, and it gave us depth. But do not mess with this right now, because what happens, I just want to share with you, if this isn't totally dry, but it's almost dry, if I start moving it, it's going to start picking up the paint. So just please leave it, use a blow dryer or whatever to dry it so you don't touch that. But I do want it a little wet. I'm going to clean my 3/4. I want it a little wet before I go and put my pink. All right, so let's take the magenta and the wicker white here again. All right, now we only need a little bit, so it's not like I need to make the big puddle like I did, the big blend, and like I did with the blue sky. All right, so I am gonna blend that in there, and you could use a 12, but I still want to move it better. So you're going to see I've got this pink on here. You can stroke it out. It's going to be the same tone right there on your guide. And then we're going to go into our floating medium, work it in, but I'm going to take some of it off. See, I'm going to pull from both sides because I don't want it to just stick and be heavy. So look, this blue's letting it move on it because of the floating medium. And I've got a light, before it's pushing hard, this is a light feathery touch. And I am going to put yellow at the bottom here, at the horizon. So as I'm coming in here, I'm going to go up more than I do it shorter than I always remember after the yellow. Oh, I got to go higher. So I'm going to be right in here all the way to there. Okay, so let's come on up here a little bit, and remember, do the chisel so it looks like the glare from the sunset's coming up. It's giving that pretty color, and the barn is going to be right here. So it's good to keep looking at your picture because it'll show you where you need this pink to be. But listen, I like to put mostly I like to cover the whole thing, even if there's going to be a barn or trees here, because the trees might peep through and you'll see the pink. I got a little thicker on that though, so maybe you won't, but I'd like to put it there anyway, just in case. Now, so I like this pink to get really powdery, light with white in it. See that? See how the white added so much to that? Medium, floating medium, and white. Okay, now when you do the clouds, you can add a little bit more white, but it's so much easier right here while the pink's wet, because what's going to happen is I don't want it to look like that you base coated, then you put the white on top. I want you to get the variation colors of multi-loading the brush and putting it in there, all right? So now the yellow is going to be there. That's why I'm okay with doing a little bit more white. I can actually come over here with a little bit more pink all the way to the edge, because this, I always act like I'm taking a photograph and I'm holding the camera up, and what do I see? What you would see is that this pink goes on and on. So you want it to go all the way to the edge. All right, are we good? Little bit. I want it bright, not dull. So right now it's dull in here to me, but the clouds are going to lift it. But right here, that means that's going to be not as light also. More floating medium, a little bit more white. And so I just put a little bit of light in here, which these are those little misty clouds that come. There we go. Isn't that pretty? All right, so clean the brush again, and I have it all ready for my next step, but I'm going to now go to my 12, all right? So let's pick up the 12 flat, and we are going, all these brushes that are in our kit, so you are all prepared and ready when you open your box to start, okay? So let's go to our yellows. Oh, guess what? I didn't put moon yellow out. That's yellow ochre. Look at that. Moon yellow. All right. Now, let's take this wicker white over here with the moon yellow, and let's make a little bit of color here. I want a little bit stronger. I will use that strong with the sun, except the sunrise itself with the sun, but right now I want white. Your yellows are lots of times pretty transparent unless you have a mix that has some white in it. So if you want it to cover well, you can add the more white wicker white you want to add. Floating medium, let's work this in, take some of it off, because I'd rather you start with less than more, okay? And let's come across here. And we don't have to worry about that drying either. So what I did decide is how much space I needed for my little phrase that we're going to use, or quote we're going to put here. All right, so as every farm begins with a barn, and that I imagined it going right in here. All right, so when I did that, you can see we got our sample right there. Halfway's right here. Okay, here's your halfway line, and the sun is a little bit over here. All right, so if I'm going to put my sun right in here somewhere, then I'm going to start with streaks of yellow because it's coming up. Okay, I need a lot of floating medium. 'Cause medium, 'cause it's sticking to that wet pink. And you might ask, do I wait till the paint dries? You can do it either way. I kind of like the way it blends in, but if it dries because you're busy doing some other part of it, it's fine too. You just use more medium. All right, so let's work this in. And if you want to even have another color, guys, just remember you can take some of the pink and the yellow mixed together. Or just, well, I've got this yellow, I could touch the pink a little bit if I wanted to. All right, so a little bit both sides. All right, now what has to happen, and everybody's sky is going to be different, so don't worry if it's exact. Just to make sure that you like what it looks like. All right, we just gave you a nice sample to go by. But people always go, Donna, is it okay if I do this? It's your painting. I want you to make it something that makes you happy. All right, so now let's do the sun. Now I'm going to take the same brush and I'm using just moon yellow. Flattening it out onto the 12, no medium. All right. Now I'm going to go and side load a little bit of the white on the corner of this brush. And I'm going to go to my reusable teaching guide to see if I've got this just like I want it. Now you're going to have this video to go by, but just remember having this right here in your hand really helps you. Now, if you're right-handed, you go one way. If you're left-handed, you go the opposite way, all right? So we can go right on here and practice this, but I want it flat, and I'm going to turn. Flat on the horizon and turn. Or, like I said, reverse of that. All right, so I'm pretty happy with the color. We do have the yellow that we can try and see if we like that shade, if it's matching that shade. I have the color right there for you, so that's going to work for you. All right, then I'm going to come right here and make sure I have a little bit of fresh since I practiced. All right, so let's start here. And it's okay if you go down into the horizon because we're going to put green over it. But turn a half circle. This sunrise might be a little higher than my original, but that's good. All right, so let's go for our greens. All right, what I can do, I want you to see when this dries is raising the grain. So I can take a light sandpaper and do a light sanding on there to smooth it out a little bit. And that matters when you're going to do your phrase. When we put our phrase there, we want it smooth so it paints really easily. All right, let's go back to our 3/4 inch brush. Does that sound good? Because we're going to cover this whole area in here, and we're still going to concentrate on horizon line being straight. Now, when I mix these colors, I grab both of these, the citrus green and the sap green, and I'm putting this over here, and I am going to pick up more. All right, and the first thing I want to do is come right in here because I only need a little bit of it here, and I'm going to also pick up some white. All right in here. And see, I want this really pale light tone because it's going to have a little bit of sun shining on this in the morning. Floating medium. That floating medium's got a lot of color in it by now. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretty much try to get a nice straight line here. Now, I take my little finger and run along here, but I want you to see if we come right in here, you don't want to go, I usually don't go flat, because if you're going flat back and forth, it will curve, and you need this line, this horizon to be very straight, guys, okay? So I usually hold it up, and I pull it standing up in front of me. I pull it this way. I'm not going side to side, all right? So I just do a nice horizon line. Then from there on, Can you see I'm coming in here? And I'm ready to get that shape. All right. So I think you can see when you're doing that as it's drying, it's going to need more white. All right. So I just take the white and work it back in. More floating medium. There we go. So I would now come along here and put that white at the top. The wicker white is going to be what we use to lighten each color. All right. Now what you can see is I have to be real careful, but I'm trying to keep it in front of the camera, so it makes it a little uncomfortable to go across there. All right. So I'm going to add a hill in front of that, but that's what I'm saying. If you add a hill here, you still have to have a spot where there's a horizon, but I wanted you to see that we're going to have that horizon, then we're going to come below that and start the rest of our look here. Now I'm going to come way over here, and I'm going to stand the brush up to get that line. And it's going to be behind the barn here. So I'm not worried about that quite as much, but what I do want is this right here to be the right color, because this will peep on the side of the barn. More medium, you'll see I need a lot, especially when you put your first coat on the wood, because it absorbs so well. All right. All right. Now, if I get into the this right in here, I take a wet brush if I go over the horizon, and a clean wet brush and just pick that up. All right. Now let's get more of this paint. And now we do the ground. So it's not difficult. It's just lots of working in color, trying to get enough of the color that you need. All right. Now, I still did use white in here. I'm going to do both cubbies so I have plenty of paint. Does that sound good? I've never done that before, but that gives us a lot of color here. All right, so now what happens is I'm going to come over here, and I decided just to come down a little bit and then take my, I want to take my horizon, my hill just slightly down to the barn. Okay. Now, what that's going to help me do, see, it's got plenty of, look how nice it moves when you have plenty of paint, plenty of medium. All right. All right. So I need to come a little bit more there, it looks like. A little bit in here. Because I think right here shows, right there. All right. But I want this lighter in here so that this hill's really going to show. And I am now, I need to get more floating medium in just a minute. So I want this line right here. I'm going to put a few shrubs on that line. Okay. Just remember, if I get ahead of you, you can stop the video, get caught up, and then turn it back on again. No stressing, because I might go a little bit faster than you, right? But so many of you worry, and you don't need to. That's the beauty of what Plaid does for us, by having all this content that you can go back to, and you don't have to download it on your machine. It's there for you. All right, so just realize right along this line, I will darken a little bit later, but we're going to put some little scruffy shrubs back there. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of yellow ochre. And let's go in here with a little bit lighter citrus. Some citrus green. All right. So I need 2 colors. Actually, I need 1 color and floating medium. So I'm going to put me some clean white. We got wicker white and more floating medium. And you will not use floating medium as much on other parts of this project, but you really do use it when we're going for moving this on raw wood, okay? So I'm going to pick up and use some of this yellow too. Look at this. That yellow mix. Because I'm going to add some yellow ochre in here for the ground where it would be, the grass is kind of worn. So I'm going to come right in here, grab some white, work that in, and some citrus, and right in here. So there are some streaks in here, and those are a good thing. Because remember I said I want movement? To me, that gave me a little bit of movement in front of the barn. And if this doesn't get right in front of the barn like you want it, when the barn's all done, we can just add more. You'll see as that happens. All right? But I realized I put a little bit of yellow ochre and the sap green, a little bit down here. Okay, get my edges. We got a lot of flowers and all are going to come right here in front. All right, so use up the rest of that yellow. That's a good thing. All right, and go back to my greens. Now, the reason you want it darker when it gets up close is what we're doing in front is we're putting a lot of pretty flowers and picket fences and different elements that we need that a little bit darker and not so light. All right. And I want to get all that shading. See, I picked up a little bit more sap. I want all the shading back here before I start painting anything. So I just go ahead and do it first. So any picture that you have and you want to paint, I just took a ton of barn pictures because I was just in Tennessee. And some worn, beat up, falling down barns to some beautiful, pristine barns. And ours is going to look a little weathered, but it's going to be what you would naturally see because I saw lots like that. All right, so I really want this to stay the lighter green, and then as we put the hedge in here, I might float some darker green in front. Okay, now we're going to put those fluffy, pretty clouds. But first of all, you can feel this. You know that it's raised the green down here a little bit, but this is a perfect time to use really fine sanding paper or our wonderful sanding blocks. And you don't have to do a lot, just a little bit takes it off. And it's got to be dry before you do that. And there we go. All right. So I like to just take right up here a little bit to get off that sanding paper, the green. There we go. All right, so let's do our clouds. You can use a 12 flat. Some of you would prefer something smaller, but I kind of use the 3/4 inch flat, and I'll show you. Now we need the floating medium, which looks green, but it really is clear because it's fresh. And then I'm going to clean this out in between before we come back to do our next palette work. So I want you to see that I'm going right at the edge of the white, and it's a little fluffy, okay? So I could come right here to see. So do not pick up straight wicker white and go straight to your project, because then you're going to be busy trying to blend that out. So if you can see that lighter's better to start with. So the top of the clouds, I want to be a little fluffy. Now when this dries, see, it's not moving very well. I need a little bit more medium. What happens when this dries is that you are going to see it be lighter. So you might want to add a second coat, but I keep going till I get it where I want to. See how I keep picking up floating medium? And the floating medium makes it really work for me because look, I don't want you to try to do exactly my clouds as long as you have a fluffy at the top. All right, see this? I'm just bellowing at the top. And then work this in and slide it across the bottom. Okay. Now, what's important is it's a little bit darker at the top. So I'm going to come right back to my white. Now I can come right in here and do little fluffy parts in the top. And also, look at this. I can come down in to here. A little bit more white, but this wicker white has medium in it, the floating medium. So it's gonna keep moving for you. All right. Now, I know that's real vivid right now, but it usually will just mellow out here as it dries. All right. Now, let's keep going. We want more floating medium and more white. So you notice I keep getting floating medium. And then I'm going to come in here. And I wanted my words to be over this. So I wanted this to not be really strong in your face, but kind of just fluffy and soft. See the bottom of this? You can take the corner of your brush and just kind of thin it a little bit with your medium, with your floating medium. Okay, so a little bit more floating medium, and I don't want it too strong. But I like it also. Let's get a floating medium again, and let's take and clean off the brush into here, into our sky. Okay. Now, did you think clouds would be that easy? They are pretty easy. We're just getting some white color in there, medium, floating medium, and wicker white. Okay. And so see the streaks in here as that's happening. Now, I do want to come over a little bit. I put a little bit on this side, floating medium, wicker white again. See, I'm not getting right into that thick paint. All right, so let's put a little bit in here at the top. I don't like I don't like balls. A lot of people say there's a cloud, there's a cloud. We don't want that. We want it to be fluffy at the top. But I have to confess, I've had somebody make all clouds going at a diagonal across their piece. I said, that doesn't look like a cloud. And then I'm writing down the interstate in Utah, and those exact clouds were there. So I will tell you what's going to happen to you as you're painting clouds. You're going to be looking up at clouds a whole different way when you are out there, like I have all my years now. Okay, so this is going to be worked in, and like I said, it's going to disappear a little bit as it dries. It's going to not be so predominant. All right, so that's enough. We just want a little bit. This, if I don't like what I'm doing here, remember what I told you? I like a little trick to show you. I told you that when this dries, it's got a sealer in it, so I can go right here with a wet paper towel and take some off. How fun is that? And it doesn't hurt anything. But don't do that if it's not dry. It's got to be really dry. Okay, so there we are. Now we're ready to do the next step. So you can go right back to your teaching guide and see what's going to be next as we're working on this project. And let me share with you that I then decided I'm going to lay out where my quote's going to be, my phrase, so that I know that I have room for my flowers in front. I also decided how far I wanted the barn to be because I wanted a little bit of a fence. And here's going to be the greenery. So what we're going to do next is I have a great tool that's in this kit, and you are going to love it. So let's go see what that tool is. Surprise, surprise, right? We already have the teaching guide. You know, that's wonderful. But now what we're going to do is pick up, let me move this out of the way. And we are going to pick up this very valuable, wonderful part of this new kit that we have for our hometown. Now, what's going to happen in this hometown kit is that every one of our projects has wonderful elements, whether they're quotes or whether they're the barn. And the best part of this barn, or whatever element that we have that's going to be in each project, is we have exactness, which Donna Dewberry needs that. And so maybe you've been with me and you're not really used to patterns, but what's going to help you with this is like building a house and the architect has to make all the lines straight, because if you don't, guess what happens? It doesn't stay standing. So one of the things that I love is not using a lot of patterns. I watched Miss Chris here at Plaid put all of this tracing as she's tracing with, this is just tracing paper. You can get pads of this tracing paper. And what I watched her do was she kept pulling her ruler, and even though I would normally just come here and trace this line, it would be not straight. It would be a little shaky. And so what was really wonderful is that you line this up, and as you're doing this, I use the fine tip of the marker and get all of our lines very straight, because I don't want you doing it on this sheet, because this has got great elements on the other side and you're going to use both sides. So you don't want to get out your pen or whatever, or your stylus, and trace right from this, because we have the other parts that you're going to use in the future on the other side. All right, so here we are. This is how it was all traced out, really looking at the exactness of the windows and the doors. And also, people tend to grow, so we want to make sure. You'll see on me, I grew a little bit. But today, I'm sure, when we're painting our project, I'm not going to grow because Chris is watching me. So I'm going to try to stay within it, because when I laid this over here, I want you to see. Can we see it way over here? The outside lines, I got really good. I didn't grow from that, but I did my windows. I just kept trying to make it straight. I kept getting larger and larger. So just be cautious of staying within the lines and not covering the line, because I promise you, as you keep going over it, you're going to end up covering the lines. But if you start that way, you're going to have a problem. Like mine. It still looks okay, but I'm going to do better for y'all today. All right. Then this is what I love, is we were able to give you so many phrases. And along with the phrases, we have a stencil, the upper and lowercase alphabet stencils that you can customize and personalize your pieces. But what I want to share with you is I love that we have a phrase that you can pick. There's faith phrases about the farm. There's farm living. Life is better on a farm. But I love this, and it was a great shape for this piece. Every farm begins with a barn. So it was fun, and I liked the pairing of different fonts. So same thing happens here. I've got a little trick that I also learned from Miss Chris, since Donna and I sketch with a pencil, and that's really a little bit more difficult when you don't feel like you can draw. And I always say you don't have to, when people say I can't do stick figures so I can't paint, and I said you don't have to draw to be able to paint, but yet then I sometimes draw, and so that's confusing for you guys. So what happens on here, we're going to also use the marker again, but having the ruler made it really nice, because as you're doing this top line, even though you see there's no top line, but if you make a mark with the top line and the bottom line, Then you come in here and it's easy. It's just having lined paper. It makes it really easy that you stop and you do each one of these straight. And then when you put them on your piece, and even with this being an arch top, it kind of throws your eyes off. So this will make it all straight and it won't go downhill, which is very important. All right. And I want you to know that when we're coming on here, what I did is I tape it down so you won't have this movement, is I came along here and I did the straight lines under each letter. As I go to paint, that made it really easy for me. Okay, so I did both of these, and this is kind of loose, so you didn't have to. So isn't that great? And now we're going to transfer this right onto our wood piece when we come back. Okay, now I'm ready to show you how to transfer this over to our project. I want you to see, I told you this kind of fades away. So it's still got a nice cloud, but it's not in your face heavy so that our words will look really good on here. Now, this is the next step. I don't want to put this first because I want to get it all in place so I can see where the placement's going to be. And how I decided to do this placement is I decided how far I wanted, if you look at this, how far I want the barn from the side. And you've got your handy ruler so you can actually figure out how many inches I want from here. I also want you to see that I have this all here on the back of your worksheet that we're going to use as we start doing this. And I'm actually needing to draw the barn shape, not the windows, because we have to base coat this barn white, which will tell you right in your teaching guide. And so what I want to do is just do my outline shape of the barn so I can be ready. Okay, so I'm going to bring this, let me tell you right now, I'm going to come up here about 2.5 inches up, and let's make a pencil line here. 2.5 inches, and I'm just going to put my little line there. So that will be where the barn is going to be, the bottom of the barn. All right, and so this is about 2 inches from here too. All right, so I'm going to come right here and leave room for my fence. All right. And that's only the 2 lines that you need to have here. So I can see through, there we are. I can see through, and I think I can see through. Oh, there it is. All right, there we go. Now, I want this straight, and I'm going to use my painter's tape, okay? And I'm going to choose to put this right along here. All right, and then I could just lift it and slide my graphite. This is really important. See the lines? We've used it. You can use it over and over, but what you're going to do is put the shiny down. So then I just slide this under here because I'd like to lift it up and check. All right, so it's important to lift it up at first to see, oh, it's showing through. But every time my fingernail or something hits, it makes a nick in here. But you can't erase that. All right, so I'm going to take a stylus, all right, and I'm going to, instead of going for it like I usually do, I'm going to take a ruler, and I even have a plastic ruler at home. Chris has this fancy metal ruler. But I'm going to come right in here, and I'm going to do the straight lines right along here. And if you're careful and you save this, then you can, it's already traced and ready to go, and put it away. I like to make a little folder or the manila envelope and put my patterns all in there. So I'm ready. All right, so look how quick and nice this was. When I saw Chris doing that, I went, oh, that's a great idea. All right. So, especially because I'm not a precise person, but I'm really picky about if it's not straight, but I'm not good at making it straight. And this helped me so much. All right. And see how easy this is? You line it up. You want to make sure that this goes, oops, that you line it right along there and hold it so it goes right there. Went a little too far, but I can erase that. Okay, now you notice I did end up putting this line here, and I want you to know why. All right, even though it's all going to be white, what happens when I did this line is these are planks of wood. So as I'm base coating them down, if you stop here and there's a ridge there, and then I pull the gray into that, then it gives you more texture. All right. And the same thing happens right here. Okay. A little bit right there. And then I'll lift it to make sure I got all the lines, but I can show you right here that this bottom is very important. Now, I don't think I've finished the top or the side, so let's just lift it and look. See? And this graphite paper is, did I say it's graphite paper? By the way, it's graphite paper. And there's whites and grays, there's different colors, okay? So, and it's very inexpensive, but it's really wonderful to have the different colors in case you have a project. I've even used it on sweatshirts and things that I need to put the design on top of. So if you have a dark surface, you would want white. All right, so there we are, and we're ready to start base coating as soon as I get this done. So I also want to put right up here, I'm going to come down and let the roof not be in the white part here. All right, I like to do this process with you so you can see it's not a difficult process. It is really nice to have a hard line. And we're ready to base coat. All right, so then what I did, and I will do it after I work on the barn, is, or you can do it now, whichever you choose. I'm not putting the windows, you understand that, and or the doors. I need that all base coated white. And then when I come back, I'm going to trace both and have them ready for when we come back. But I want you to see what was the most important part about this is you're going to line this up, measure. I couldn't measure from here. I measured from the side, but that was because this was traced perfectly straight on this paper with these lines. And the lines are going to help you line it up, two benefits, and it's also going to help you stay straight on the line so it doesn't fall down. I'm going to be transferring my pattern while you do yours, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I finished tracing my little phrase that we're going to say, and I base coated in white. So it's just solid white. So I wanted to be ready for you guys to then come in here and put the windows and the gray planks that I'm going to put in here. So I just want you to see that it has to be totally dry, of course. And then I lined it up, make sure it was really lined up well. And I wanted you to see all the elements that you had to trace on. And don't forget the handy ruler trick. That was really wonderful. That helps it line up really good. And the only thing I noticed on this, because it is such a big ruler, if I had a little bit smaller ruler, I could have gotten into the cubbies a little bit easier. But metal rulers are so nice. Okay, so the cross in here, I'm going to base coat so it wouldn't show if I did it, because I'm going to base coat the gray. And I really am not going to see the cross panes in the window, but I did put those, and I didn't do them in the bottom of the door. See? So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a mix of the licorice and the wicker white to get a medium gray. All right, and I want it medium so that I can shade in dark with a little bit of licorice around the edges and shade in here. So this shows you which direction I would go to make that happen, and then how to crisscross here, and then a little bit of hardware that I put on. All right, so I have everything here, and the weather vane also. Do the weather vane afterwards. And so what I'm showing you always on here is a close-up with the arrows to just, I know you're watching me, but I just want you to see again on the worksheets. And you can practice getting your shading on the planks right here, right on the white barn. All right, now you could even start doing that when the barn is a little wet. Let me pull this off. But I want you to see that this is all ready for us to come later when we do the quote, but like I said, if I had this and I needed to paint white and then I was going to go to the next step here, it would be messing up my pattern. So keep your patterns really nice so it's ready for you next time you're going to use it, because I'm sure you're going to do many more. Okay, so we're going to make a gray. I started making some color here, but I want to pick up a little bit more white and just make it lighter before I start. It's safer that way. A little bit more white, wicker white. There we go. And then I can always get darker, but you don't want to start out really dark, okay? So I'm going to take this brush and wipe it on my paper towel. And then I'm going to pick up medium and work this in. I always say don't use 3 compartments, and I just did. Okay, so I'm going to use, like I said, a 12 up there. And right here, I'm just using, look how nice that is. It's just enough to give you that shaded look. I don't want it perfect because then it's going to look more weathered. But you can come back later and maybe put some white back in here. But I'm going to go all along this line. And see, I still need more floating medium. Because see how dark that is there? Come in here. It's okay to go on top of the windows because they're going to be a darker color. More medium, more floating medium. Okay, so look, I could go back here and pick some back off and use that over here. Now, if I have my paper towel here, I can pick up, wipe, and you decide how gray you want it. And like I said, I can come in here and just add white back in if I feel like I need to, which I probably will. So I'm going to chisel just a little bit of white here and bring it here and there. I don't want it to go into the blue like I did there, so I'll just wipe that off with a wet brush real quick. All right. So I'm going to take water on my flat brush and just clean that off before it dries, okay? Now we have the roof itself is going to be a little bit darker gray, and it's going to go on that edge along here to clean that up some too. All right. Now I'm going to come right here and I'm going to do a line right across there, and what I did is I did it again after I did the bottom part. More floating medium, and I'm going to come right along here. It's still darker than I want it to be. So come over here and work it in so that when I come back in here, every time I'm going away, guys, I'm getting some floating medium, all right? It's okay for a weathered barn to have some heavier areas here and there. Sometimes I take my 12 and make a few little panes here, but I'll, what do you call it? Pieces of wood here. Siding. All right. And you'll see it sticks right here. If I have enough medium, it's very, enough of the floating medium, it goes very smoothly. So you can tell if you don't have enough floating medium. So it's a weathered barn. And if you have wood fence around your house, then you know that color. So weathered gray. All right, try to make sure these strips that you see are kind of straight, a little bit straight. All right, so after I get through putting the edge of the roof and all on here, I can do a little bit more aging by putting little bits of liner there. Now, I want to spend this time on this barn, even though you're not going to just concentrate on the barn. But when you first look at this, you see the barn. So that part's very important, that it has a good look. All right. So I'm going to come right in here and on the chisel, break this up into a couple sections here. Over the top of the roof, pick up more of the darkest gray that I made, the mix that I made there, and down the sides. All right. I love it when we do these as the winter because we could have snow and icicles hanging on here. So this will be a good template for you to use for other great projects. All right. So we're going to come right here and we're going to come down. Let me move this off here. We're going to come down and let this have a little bit of overhang, okay? Now I'm going to get the 12 flat and wet it, lay it on the paper towel, and pick up a little bit. See, I did go into the peak there, but now I've got to add the top roof on here, the very top. So you're pulling out, pulling in. Just remember to go to your teaching guide. It helps you remember the things that I've said in class. And after you watch it once first, and then go back and do step by step with me, and it'll help you see, because when you get really concentrating on what I'm showing, then you forget me for a while and get busy doing other parts. Okay, so now I want to work on mixing the colors that we're going to put in the openings of the barn. All right, and then I do bring some licorice in here and do a little bit of shading. I did even with just a little smaller brush. All right, so let's take our medium over here with a darker gray. So licorice and white, and we're going to mix it. Now I want to mix enough this time that I can do all those openings. I don't want it so dark that it looks like the black shading won't show, but up here you see into the barn, it is pretty dark. Okay, so I made a nice mix, and you can come over here and see if you're liking the color. If the color makes what you want. It can go a little bit lighter there. I'm going to grab another paper towel because I used up my nice little eraser, right? So, all right, I'm going to wipe that off. Be sure to wipe off your worksheet as you go because the paint's made to be durable and stay. We want to wipe it off as we go. All right. All right. Now what we want to do is we want to take, and just for this door, I'm going to, well, actually this will fit here too. My 3/4 inch, I can come right here and pull across. I'm going to steady myself and get it really nice inside my lines. Opening here. And so this is where the barn doors are open and you see inside where the hay would be. All right. So because I couldn't see the top, I went over a little bit. Okay, so what we want to do next is I want to take this chisel, and if you can see this, I'm going to go straight across the top and straight down. And I do put white. I ended up on this, putting a little bit of white trim around it. Okay, now it's easier just to fill in Oops, I'm shaking there. All right. Now this color, see, it ends up getting even darker than you think, but the plain licorice will still show really well on here. Okay, so now I'm going to wash this brush, and let's use the 12 because the other windows are smaller. All right. You want to make sure you get all the paint out of that brush. You don't want it left in the ferrule because that's what ruins your chisel on your brush, okay? I'm going to keep my little eraser here. And I'm going to use the floating medium with that gray mix again. That's the dark gray mix. All right, so I'm going to come right in here. I want to make sure I'm out of the way so y'all see that good. All right, so see how I outline it? And then we're going to fill it in. Okay, so because I did the floating medium, it is a little bit more transparent. Did you see that? Because I added more floating medium. All right, so we're going to come right down here again. Right over here. Work really hard on staying inside those lines. And because I pushed down a little bit, see that moved out a little bit? Just a little bit will make a difference. I know we're going to put white there, but I want you to see that if I do a clean white, clean brush full of water, I can take off if I'm not happy. Okay, so we just fill those in. All right, so there is a line right here, and I kind of can float that in later. All right. These are little windows out here on the side. That's a perfect example of where it's squished out on me, and all I do is clean it with a wet brush, lay it on the paper towel, clean it again, okay? Okay, so that's the beauty, I think, of the templates for us, because I love that they're all in proportion of what they need to be. Now, you see this one's still a little transparent. I just put another coat on that real quick. So what I did wrong on that is I went into the floating medium before I picked up the paint. Okay. So there we go. Now, what we're going to do now is come in here, and I did do a little bit of shading, so I can do a straight line in here where this divides, which I should have probably put this line in here as I was going, but I'm going to wash this brush and float this. All right, so I have floating medium, and I side loaded a little bit of the gray. All right, so look, if I come here and I pull it down, I don't want to get in my wet paint. Then what that can do is set this building back a little bit by shading on this side. Okay, so now I'm going to put some white around each one of those, but let's put a little bit of the shading detail in here before we do that. Okay, so we're going to come along here. See how that licorice adds to it? And I just picked up a teeny bit. See this? It's got floating medium, a teeny bit of licorice, and I just kind of went along here, right? And then I made my planks in here. So I'm going to, with the chisel, I'm not making them perfect, but I'm doing a little bit and then come over here. And just remember in barns, sometimes they're not all even the same size plank of wood. And I didn't measure it out or make it perfect because it's weathered by this point. All right, so you just come along here. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I did bring a couple spots down in here. So this one would be right here a little bit. I do shade right here and right here. I lay in the brush flat instead of chisel, okay? All right, so then I'm gonna come right in here. I'm gonna float right along this roof line afterwards, but right now I'm just doing a few little cracks for the wood. I know this takes a little bit of time, but it's kind of fun when it's all done. Right up here, I'm just kind of gauging where it would hit. And I can even do little nail holes by putting a little teeny dot here and there. Okay. All right. Now I'm still going to shade and float in there some, but right now I'm just going to get medium, floating medium, and a little bit of that darker gray and do the floating down the side. Floating medium, gray. I'm going to reinforce this again. And I am coming under here for a shadow. And the shadows go under here. Some of that I do at the very end, and when I want to get a little bit more detail. But look, if I take the whole chisel into that gray and skip around here some, see how it starts giving it some aged look? Whole chisel. Okay. Now, what I want to do down here is I'm going to pull, skip a little bit. All right. Same thing that happens over here, floating medium, a little bit of the dark gray. And if you come along here, just like I did on the other side, I'm going to pull this, and I can put flowers and all kinds of stuff there, so it's going to look fine. So that is not moving for me. So I did get a little bit of water so I could pick up some of that. And every time I move away from the piece here, I'm touching a paper towel, just like this, and wiping it. So that's how I took off what I didn't like. So then I can come right back down here again and just shade this side. But if you look on this side, I shaded it twice, so far I've only done it once. All right, so let's look at getting some more of these planks down on this side. And it has a little bit of licorice around the windows, but we'll wait and do that. Oh, I had put a teeny bit of licorice, didn't I? There we go. A little bit of licorice. See, short little strokes. And they would kind of meet up with that, but they don't actually have to. All right. Now, what's fun is I like when something's all done, and you have a building or a truck or something in it. But doing objects in my painting are not my favorite. My favorite part of a landscape or a painting is when I get into the flowers or the leaves and the detail like that. A lot more double-loaded stroke work, right? All right, so look what happens. I want you to see the difference and this side and that side. So the more detail you put on, the better it starts looking. See, I'm just doing a chisel edge of licorice. With a good perspective. Put a little bit heavier shading there. Well, let's finish our paints over here. I'm going to pick up the gray mix and some licorice. And let's finish some of these pieces over here. And then we're ready to do what I consider the fun part, where we start putting detail. This is how we get the shading and the windows and stuff in there. Okay, so now what happens is I'm going to put in the white. All right, so I'm going to do that with a 12 also. So I'm going to pick up and flatten out the chisel of the wicker white. No medium, just wicker white on a 12 flat. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to take my little finger to steady me, and I want to pull straight across. Now, I'm keeping this straight, but I would lift this and move it around so that I could get to it easier. All right, so pull this across. And so we have just a little white trim. That's what gives us the shutters. All right, so what happened here, you can retrace on if you had light graphite paper, white. But I'm going to come in here and I'm just winging it. And then I'm going to crisscross. So you go from corner to corner and corner to corner. All right. Then we can come down to the doors themselves. And I push down a little bit harder here. Push. And more paint. Pull it straight down. So I'm touching and I'm leaning a little bit heavier to get a fuller strip of wood, okay? All right, so this is, I forget what you call these, but the doors where they're half. All right, so this barn door opens halfway here. And what happens is we have a crisscross down here. And I'm going to darken this ground around here so I'm not worried about going into it a little bit. And I'm also putting some trim hardware on the doors. So let's do a light little small chisel around these. And what you're going to see me do, guys, is we're going to come back and we're going to shade inside these window panes. So I might not put the panes in there right now unless I go back and do it when they're dry. All right, so I'm going to come around each one. These are pretty with window boxes. All right, and we have another large window here. All right, so before I put the panes in, I'm going to wash this. And I like to go ahead and shade it before I go in. So I'm going to do floating medium on my 12. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of licorice on the corner. And I'm going to work this in so it's just on one edge. Okay? One edge. And I could do the whole piece by picking up from that blend I just did. I'm going to lay this brush down and float down and across the top of that opening, and I can pull it down a little bit to make it dark in there. All right, I go back to that same load that I had there, and I'm going to do the shading on the top and the left just like I did up at top there. Top and left, and then across. I'll do a little bit more and do the same thing here. All right, so now when I put the panes in the window, it'll look more realistic. All right, so see, that's easy if you have it loaded right. Floating medium, just a little bit of licorice on the one corner, and you're ready to go. Okay, so to finish this up, I'm going to pick up just the wicker white flat on the chisel again, and then I'm going to divide these. But listen, you don't have to freehand these. Remember, just have white graphite and let this all dry and go back, and you have a perfect template to follow to fill in these panes. Okay? So you would trace that right on. And these, you can leave them as openings, but I went ahead and made them windows. Okay? All right. Now, the weather vane, if I don't put it now, I'll probably forget. All right, I did take the weather vane and picked up licorice again, flat. All right, and I'm just going to come straight off the top and make a little straight line coming down. All right, and I want to take it off right here. All right, now what we did was take our 2 script liner now and make it a little inky, a teeny bit of water, because I want it skinny, really light and skinny. Okay, so I came down here and I just crisscrossed, and Chris made me see that I had the wrong direction, going the wrong way. So we're going to have east, we do an E, and we did a west right here. Okay. And then we're going to come up and do north and south. North. I know, because I live in the south. The south is down. There we go. All right, so I'm going to dip dot. I'm going to dip the handle and dot the top. And you can make a little rooster. You can do whatever you want at the top of that weather vane. You know how they have the angel? There's all kinds of fun stuff. Now, I did take my inky. I want to show you. I made a little bit inky with the licorice. Roll that brush. And it is kind of fun to take and just wiggle this a little bit to get a little bit of loose look. I did take my liner and I kind of make the planks, look right here. If you make the planks come up, like they're weathered a little bit, that's kind of fun too. All right, and then I can make a little bit here and do that kind of loosey-goosey. They don't have to be perfect. Look, right here, up, a little bit here, a little bit across the end of the roof right here. And then do the same thing up here. Okay? Now, what I want here on at the door is I have a hinge and a hinge. You can even do 3 if you want, but I did 2 there and 2 here. And what I show you right in here is how to put all those on, but I also want you to do a little cross here. Goes across the latch. All right, I'm gonna become a little bit heavier here. Okay, so now we get to start putting our trees and all in. This is the detail that I really like, and sometimes I don't have patience. So enjoy this barn and have a good time doing it, okay? That's the whole part of doing the barn, is I want it to be a fun feature that's inside of our painting, all right? So let's get our scruffy brush. We're going to use our scruffy and we're going to load our palette with citrus green and sap green. And I do want some white again, so I'm going to squeeze out these 2 colors. And then I also used moon yellow and wicker white. So we've got that for the yellow blossom tree on the right side. I don't know what those are called, but I like them a lot, and they don't have greenery. I'm also going to grab some yellow ochre for the depth in those trees, and let's put some yellow ochre over here too, and then we'll be ready to get all this back and the trees that are behind, and also this little few bushes that are on the hill here. All right, so now let's use the scruffy brush to start with, but I am going to go to my reusable teaching guide and see how I did this next. Okay, so now that shows you everything that you wanted to do before we started our florals and all. Then I'm going to come right here and let's look at the trees. So we're doing the background trees are with this scruffy. I'm going to show you this. And then some of that scruffy down after we finish our flowers. Then up here, it shows you up close what you're supposed to do with that. And right here is going to list the colors. So we're practicing with the yellow ochre and moon yellow. And then we come in here and scruffy some of that also. All right. And then I came back and put these little stems to occasionally. So there's a couple different things and you can practice right here. So I'm going to pick up the yellow ochre and the moon yellow. All right. And work it in. Then from then on, I can just pick up and pick up. All right. Pat to flatten it. All right. So then you just come right here, guys, right on your guide and see if that works. Okay, so I'm using a number 12 flat to practice and see if I've got the right shading. Then I have the 1/2 inch scruffy, which is going to be what I'm going to do passing in here. All right, so I made sure I've got my colors I want to use. And I'm going to start by, before I use my scruffy, I'm going to start by lining up where I want these trees to be. All right. So the first thing I want to do is take this 12 flat, double load it, then I'm ready. So right here, just remember this is the sap green and the citrus green that we're using here. And then a little bit of medium. And what I wanted to do is come right here about right in this spot and with the dark against the roof and come all the way down in here. And I did come Let's try to make that real straight. I did come all the way down to about right there. And I'm just going to kind of slap this in just because I don't want the scruffy to get over at the roof, because then it will look like it's on top. I'm going to go ahead and get more and come over here because the scruffy is going to go all in here too. So I want to go along this line of the barn. It's easier than trying to guess where this is going to be, because if I put this in the background first and then put the barn on, it would be in the back. But this is easier because then I can just go for it. Now this is dry scruffy. The important thing about a scruffy is you have to fluff the scruffy. Okay, so you have to fluff it so it's like a round oval, not a smush flat brush, okay? Now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pick up on the edge. Hear that? I'm pouncing on the edge of the sap green. Then I turn it over and pounce on the edge of the citrus. Sap, citrus. So you're going to go and get sap green, citrus green. Every time you need to come get more, I'm over here doing this. Now, if you look at the greens that I've used, I came over and got a little bit of white. And you find this out, the wicker white, you find this out by what it looks like right here. So I could just pick a little bit of the wicker white on the citrus edge. All right. So now I'm deciding how big I want this to go. I'm going to keep the dark up against the barn. And then I'm going to start right here, and you can pounce like this, but I don't want polka dots. See the polka dots? Until it starts blending, all right? But I want that little bit of glow. So remember what I said? We go back, pounce sap green, citrus green, a little bit of white. All right, now what happens is a tree has different clusters of greenery. So I have some dark in here. Hear the pouncing? The pouncing is just the sound that I make when I'm picking up the paint on my palette. So just remember that. The yellow is going to fall into there. I'm going to come here and get more green, sap green, more citrus green, a little bit of white. And so now when I come over here, this one's a little bit lower. Now that's too much white, so I'm going to pick up more citrus. And I'd like to have, I don't like them all to be the same color. They might all be the same type of tree, but they're in different light. So one might be the sun straight on it, one's kind of behind the house. All right, so now look, I want to come down a little bit more. Really close to the barn. And then I'm going to come here with the picket fence. I'm going to go on to the edge because that could be a tree and a bush. All right. So now don't forget I wanted this. So what's going to happen here is, let's go, let me put this down. And I want this really faint. So what if I pounce the white in so it's on here really good? And then what's going to happen is I'm going to pounce along this edge. And I'm barely tapping it. Barely tapping it. So I'm going to show you a quick trick with a wet brush right here. All right, so I want to take the 3/4 and I wet it, and then I want to make this green shaded underneath. So there we are. So just make sure that it looks like this hill's in front of it. Okay, so I'm done with the scruffy for a while. So on the scruffy, you pounce in the water. to clean it, and then you pounce here to dry it. And you can see, does it still look green? You pounce it till you don't see any more of that green, which means it's not in the ferrule anymore, but it still is there. See that? All right. So let's wash our number 12, and we're going to work on this guy right here, because I didn't just do a number 12. I also did the scruffy. All right. So it's dry. One thing I tell you to do when you're through washing the scruffy is you pinch the ferrule and all that water comes out. See, it's still green. And then you fluff it. All right, a little bit in the beginning, if there's a little bit of paint in the beginning that's down in the ferrule, it helps it when it dries to stay fluffy, but you don't want that to build up. So that's just a little trick I do. All right, now I want to come in. Remember, we practiced using the yellow ochre and the moon yellow. Okay, so I did a little bit of this underneath. A little bit. And I want it down here a little bit. I want it down because I had to put it there last time. I'm getting close to my horizon there. I mean my sunrise, so I don't want it there. But I did want this in here. Okay, so now what we have at this point is a couple of things. I can clean off this so it's behind the roof, not in front. All right, so that cleaned it up with just a wet number 12. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, that just fills it up in the back. But if I come in here with my green, you can do this green now and you might do it again later. But I'm going to pick up some sap green. That citrus didn't show. And I'm going to just put a few branches in here. Okay. Like I said, I might do that a little bit later too. But what I'm going to do now is pick up the two colors, yellow ochre and moon yellow. And then on the moon yellow, I'm picking up a little bit of wicker white. So let's remember I showed you how I'm doing it here. And this one is a little bit on the corner. Tip, 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 tap. And then over here, I pulled this in here to see if I got the right colors. And that was the scruffy that we showed. And then I came in here and I have the white and the moon yellow and how that's going to look now when we put it all in there. So we kind of use every bit of that. And this is a close-up showing you so that you're very comfortable with what you want that to look like. All right. So it's not a stressful, hard thing to do. It's just slapping the corner. And I'm not doing this. All right. It's going to be, watch this brush. I'm going to sweep the corner on the project. Sweep, sweep, sweep. All right. And then I come down here and sweep a little bit here. So this is the light highlight. So you might want to do that a little bit later. I just wanted you to see as we're going here. But I already have the yellow ochre on one side. So I kind of put the yellow ochre in here, little dabs of yellow ochre, and I want those underneath. So that's how you get the depth. I just keep coming and getting some yellow ochre. There you go. All right, then let's go back to the moon yellow and the white. All right, now I can put some more of that little bits of white in here. Out here a little bit, especially on top where the green is at. There we go. All right, So, like I said, you can come back and put a few more stems in here if you want. But what I'm doing here is I'm putting the yellow and yellow ochre, the moon yellow and yellow ochre, because I'm going to come in here and put the fence. And I wanted this to show through. Okay? So I just showed you those are real simple ways to make that happen. I'm going to let this sit and dry just a minute before I do the white fence. But what I want to do along the bottom here is I'm going to take my 3/4 flat brush and floating medium. And let's pick up some sap green. And then I'm going to come right here and I'm going to work it in. Okay, so I'm going to come right under here. See how that's floating along there? That helps you get some depth right at the edge. And if you watch, everything I'm doing is bringing you forward. So it looks way different when you start seeing some shading along there to bring that depth in there. And we're going to put some grass along there. All right, so do you see how this sets back now? I'm going to come here, and that, just that little bit sets that back. And I left this kind of not like that. Let's see. I've got my 12 flat ready, and I want to see that picket fence. What about you? Okay, so we're going to take this 12 flat with wicker white and fill the brush and make it really flat so that we can get that picket fence in there. And we're going to come right here, and there's a couple things that really make it look good. One of them is deciding in a space how well you're going to fill that space. Now, do you ever know where to start? You can start right here on the edge, or how do you balance it? Well, the way I balance it is I decide where I want the top picket to be, kind of right here with that line of the window. So I touch, lean, and pull, and I do the center one. Then I'm going to come over here and split from there to there, and do one here, and from here to the opening space of the side, and go to there. Now, at this point, I don't want it quite so tall because it's setting back a little bit, okay? So, look, I just took some of that off and made it a little shorter. And then over here, it can even be a little bit further back, but I'm just going to come over here and say I decide I'm going to go to right here. All right, so I do my first picket there, and then same thing, I'm going to go right in the middle of those two, center. And see, the yellow's dry, so I can go here and decide how many to put in between here. So I wouldn't split in between this, but it's easier to see that I can do 2 in here. And over here I can do 2. Okay? Now what happens here is the second thing I'm saying that's important when you do a fence is we're going to start here and we're going to have a center or a cross that holds the picket fence together. We're going to have one at the top and one near the bottom. All right. And then we're going to come over here and gauge what that was over there. And come here, touch, lean, and pull. And touch, lean, and pull. All right. So we have the 2 fence areas in there, and I'm just going to set it so you can see. I'm going to just take the same float of the floating medium and sap green and move that in the back there a little bit. Okay? And over on this side a little bit. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna still go in and pick up a little bit floating medium and sat green and flatten this out. Now what's gonna happen with this little brush is I'm gonna work on what's back here by the barn and then grow forward. All right, so to me this is the fun part, is decorating with little teeny grass and blossoms back there. All right, so we have our fence, and this is what I'm showing you. We're going to go along right here, along the barn. And some people tend to want to use a script liner, and sometimes I do if they're really fine little strokes. But your number 12 flat should be able to do this. Look, I'm going to take and move it with my whole hand and make it really thin. All right, skip over here a little bit. And then way over here. And I did work some yellow in right there. I can use a little bit of citrus now. And so I did some short, tall ones. Let's come in with some more blossoms here. And then I did have just a few strokes that showed back here, but you have to be careful because when I put the plants in front, you might do all this work and not even show. All right. Now I did put some right on the corner, a little bit of grass right here on the corner. And there we go. Now, what's going to happen right here, I picked up a little bit of floating medium with this, and I want this path to come around here. So look, I just kind of say this is grass growing, and it could be a little bit of a bush that's lining this path. And you could do this, or you don't have to do it because we're going to put a lot of stuff in front of it, but I want you to see that. That's kind of fun. And then I just came along here and making sure I picked up a little bit of citrus green and sweep that back and forth in here and just leave it, okay? I think I did come in a little bit because it wouldn't be perfect. It's not perfectly groomed. It's out on the farm. Let's take our liner and we'll get started with some of those little flowers. So one thing I want you to remember as we get ready to put the little flowers is go over here and make sure you look, say, the white stock flowers. It's really easy for you to find which ones you're doing. And I want you to look at number 1's always going to help you because it's going to say the brush and it's going to say what colors you start to put on the brush because sometimes they're just white, sometimes they're multiple colors. I'm going to get paint now and we're going to come over here and paint those little flowers right on the reusable teaching guide. So we have tall stock flowers we're going to do later, but right now what we're doing are these little dibs and dabs, okay? Now I'm going to pick up the white and these are just little laid on here little petals, all right? And that's with the tip of the script liner. Sometimes I'm dabbing instead of pulling the stroke. Little touches where you dab. And they should be really light in the back. Like here's another version. These are really teeny. As I get closer, I'm going to do this more, where I'm stroking right on here. And you touch and pull right onto the grasses. And then over here, there's 2 ways I've done it. I pulled up the grass and then I used the corner of the brush, but we'll wait and show you that a little bit later. All right. So let's do all of our little, I've got my paint eraser. I'm going to do all my little dibs and taps and dabs on here, right way in the back here. So what I did on this one is I have yellow on my brush. Let me take that off. All right. So I'm going to get thick white, not inky white. Okay, so thick wicker white, not inky wicker white. So I'm going to come here and just every once in a while put a little bit here, and one of the things that I realized that I didn't do, and I'm going to do it before I get any more paint on here, is I'm going to have to be cautious there, but I'm going to take my floating medium on my 12 flat, and I'm just going to pick up a little bit of this medium gray, all right, the shaded gray that I made, and you just want to go under this edge of that's enough, under the edge of the picket fence area, look, right under here, and a little bit under this one, and that doesn't have to be perfect, but that gray in there really does make a difference, and a little bit down some of this one on this side. I'm not going to do it on the other side, okay? Little teeny tip, it'll make a difference, I promise you. I didn't worry about putting centers or whatever on these, but what I will show you is that while I had the white right over here by this window, I touched a little bit. These are just little dabs, thicker paint. And if they're dabbed like this might be a different flower than those flowers. And just that little detail really makes a difference, guys. All right. And I did put a few little dots right in here. And I don't think I did any there. The rest are yellow. All right, so now we have more that are going to be in the front, but we're just addressing the little wildflowers that pop up back here. And now, so this is what I'm doing. I have a little of the moon yellow, and this is a 2-script liner, and thick yellow ochre. So now what's going to happen is I'm going to have the yellow ochre at the bottom. So see, I'm just tapping this in here. The darker yellow ochre is going to be right along there. And a little bit down in here. Just on the ground, I made it a little bit darker. And then we're going to pick up this moon yellow and get lighter as we go up. And I had some on the corner here. Some of this is going to be covered, but I go ahead and put it there anyway because I'm not sure if it's going to be covered or not. So then we can use the moon yellow and some wicker white. Kind of mix that together so we have some light. So the light would be up here first. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up more moon yellow. And I made it a little bit bushier over here. All right, let's get some more of the moon yellow. And then let's come way over here and see, I kind of dab it and work it in. So the yellow ochre is going to go all along here. Bright moon yellow at the top. I really think this one right here gets covered. But I've got this one kind of mud now. So look, I bring some ochre on the bottom. All right, and let's start looking at front flowers, okay? Those excite me because they're right here. Now that little bit makes a big difference when all the front flowers are in because it makes it look like the barn's sitting in the back, so you get good distance. All right, so I am going to take the 3/4 flat, and we have small little flowers here. So those would be the next thing that's close to the barn, but all of these flowers over here are really close. And I go back to tell you, if I was taking a photograph, I'd love to put some flowers that are really close to the camera. And that's what these are here. So let's look on here and show you that these are wonderful strokes that even I did them after I do the flower. And as I stroke up, it picks up the purple. And it gives you that pretty shading in the leaf. But to practice this, let's pick up I'm going to use the 12 flat. And sometimes you can use the 3/4, but I had more control with my 12 flat. So I'm picking up the color here. So we're doing citrus green and sap green and working that in. Little bit of white. All right, wicker white. sap green, citrus green. And then I'm going to dip into my floating medium and one time go back and forth to get it smooth. So as I'm stroking this, let me show you what happens. We're going to stroke right. I tell you to put it down on the table, so let's do that. All right, we're going to take and stroke, long, smooth stroke. So I can do 2 strokes in there, push down harder and get it long and smooth, or come right here, short and long and smooth to the side. But I'm going to put that all on top of the purple, so you're going to get some pretty colors in here. And then we take our eraser, and I like it to stay folded so it just cleans it better instead of having wads of paper towels in your hands. Now you test it right here to see if you got the color right. Just remember, I have those all over the guide, all right? And then you're going to slide the stem to get the stem where your flowers, where you want your flowers to be. So this is how I decided. I've got my lettering that's going to go there. I'm going to pick up the same colors again, dip into the medium. All right. And let's just do our stems. And the first stem, let's come over here. The first stem, I'm going to run my little finger on top of here because I want it steady. And I came about right here. And I'm going to pull it down. And I can go all the way down. I just will do my purple blossoms not that far down. And then I'm going to come right here. I need room to make a little fool there. So I'm going to come right next to it. And I usually start at the bottom and go up. But these are better to start here and come down. So for placement, do you see that? Because I want this one to curve. I can go right here and curve it in. And I think it looks like there's a little one in between there, but I don't know if we needed that. All right, so I have a little teeny one short because it's not blooming yet. All right, so now let's look right here, and I don't want to touch my sunrise, so I want to come right in here, and the first one's going to come here, and this is my map. It's going to help me see where to go, and right here is for the bee, right under the bee. Let's go right there. I'm going to put a little bit of white on this because I don't see it very well. There we go. Now there's a little one here, but this kind of gets it all ready for you. You can put chalk, but this gives you the green to pounce on top of. All right. A little one over here. All right. Right there. Another one in here. All right, this one's going to come higher, and I was a little cautious, so I still wanted to see the window, and this one's a shorter one. This one's going to go way over here and higher. It's real important that you have the height so it feels like it's in front. And then right here is my last one. Okay? And then we'll come in here and put the green leaves right on top. So that was not hard. That's just your placement, and it'll save you so much because you won't be thinking. What I like to have you do is I'd like you to lay it out so that you don't have to think anymore. You're just pouncing. And when you're pouncing, you are just thinking about those pretty flowers being fluffy at the top with white, and the purple tones are at the bottom. All right. So let's go see, guys, what color we use. We're using our 1/2 inch scruffy, and we're using dioxazine purple and wicker white. All right, so it is kind of tricky to do pouncing. As you saw, there's a difference in how you move it around so you don't get rows. Well, this time we do want a row, and we are using dioxazine purple. And this is an old color brought new again and brought back in, and we are lovers of that paint. It's fun, fun, fun. All right, so I'm going to put a little bit of fresh or wicker white, and this brush is all dried out from being in the basin, all cleaned up. one end is purple and one end is white. So let me explain to you when I say end, this is an oval like an egg. And so it's the upper half or the bottom half. It's not the sides. So when I say end, it's the tip down here and the tip down here of the oval. All right. So now when we go to pounce this and we pounce it on here, we are going to pounce to see if this color's good. And you don't want to pounce down really hard because this was dampened just recently. So look, it smashed really quickly. So I'm going to pounce lightly, really lightly. I'm not smush, 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 okay? And that's what people tend to do. So let's do the lower tip purple. And then I'm going to twist it around and put one end white, one end purple. Dioxazine purple and wicker white. So we're going to go along here. So the light hits one side. So you'll notice as I'm coming up, very light, like a feather, I'm tipping this. When I get to the top, I will take and lay the brush on the side so I can pounce that white on one side. All right, so practice that and make sure you get it to look like you want it to look, and realize how much you have to push or not push, tap or not tap. Okay, so let's get all of that off in case you want to practice again. Now, what I usually tell people is that you can take a wet towel first, dry it with a dry towel, but if I was doing that, I should have pulled off some of that with a dry towel before I started with a wet one. All right, so I'm going to keep going over here and picking up. Same thing, it's got to be a dry scruffy before you start. All right, so I'm going to come all the way down here and I'm going to about right here. Now I can move it around at first. See that? I'm going from side to side, side to side. If you over pounce, it becomes mud and it becomes one color. So we don't want that. I'm going to come right in here a little bit more. And then we're going to tip it on its corner on the side. Okay. So I've lost my color here, so it's easy. I'm going to just come back, pounce. So it's important, if nothing else, that you get the white along the left side. And the darker purple on the right side. Okay. So like I said, practice a little bit. Make sure you feel comfortable. All right, before we start going here. So we want a little bit more of the dioxazine purple. So we're going to come right here. And so I can come in here and do this all purple. Second option. Make it a little bit easier for you maybe. I like just doing it as I go, but I just want to show you another option because then I can come in here and just tap the white on one side. That seemed to go a little bit easier, so it's up to you, okay? And then I just came in here, and this I decided would be kind of fun as a light one. I still have leftover paint. Oops. Okay, so remember I said that this was base coated with a sealer. So look what happens here. If you get carried away, you don't have to worry about it. Watch this. Don't bring a big paper towel. Use your 3/4 inch brush and just lift it with water. All right. Now I just got carried away, but this is what I want you to see. I don't want you to go, oh, I just messed it up. I don't like that. All right. So this is what we're going to do. We go back. And I'm going to tip it on its side. And there we go. So all we're going to do now is come back and put some white in. All right, and then I'm going to do a little teeny one on the edge of the brush. All right, let's come over here. Let's pick up more white, wicker white. So absolutely no floating medium when you're doing the scruffy, okay? On the edge to get the tip. All right, now I'm staying on the edge over here. And here. And so I want to alternate what gets full. This one's full down here at the bottom. So if I do it large, heavier down here, then it'll look like it's in front of this one. And I don't have to worry about it because the green will pick up. But I don't want you to get carried away, so I can just wipe it off, see? All right, and pick up a little bit more white. So these just make a big difference pretty quickly. All right, now here again, this one's just a little one right here, straight up. But here, let's get a bigger guy, because I want to get that illusion. Then we tap some white. It is a little fuller down here, and then it gets little. All right, fuller. And a tall one. Okay, we have one more. A little bit more purple. Oxazine purple and white. Wicker white right there. All right. So you can see if some get a little muddy, and you can tap a little bit more in there. But as long as you have those rich colors, they're not muddy one color. You see some variation. The key with double loading is you have the dark, medium, light, and lighter. All right, so let's put in our greenery. And we are going to go back here and read what it's all about. And it's going from sap green. We practiced it already, citrus green. We work it in. So we split it here to pick up. And if this isn't over here, you move it over here. We're going to pick up more of the wicker white on this 12 flat. Get some medium, work it in because we need it to move. All right. Now what's going to happen here, I'm going to put my purple in the water. And I make a habit of the scruffy. I like washing it as I go in case I need it. But we're pretty much done here. But I want you to see that after you practice those long, slender leaves, I want you to come in here, and we're going to bring them from the bottom, and we're going to slide up. Go pick up more paint, slide up, and a few in here. All right, so you have to make sure that you keep looking at your contrast here and that we have some good color showing so you can see. Also gives you the depth. Going to the medium and working this in again. All right, so I did have some that look good with the purple showing. This is a little bit of an illusion because it's got the muddy look on inside where we're going to base coat it. So I'm going to come over here and just pick up a little bit of the dioxazine purple so that you get some pretty color in here. And if you see how I did it, maybe we won't blend it into the citrus. There we go. Look how pretty. All right. So I just dip the corner into the purple and then come back here and pick up more. Let me put this over here because I need more white on some of those. See how pretty that is? And I don't want it to push down too hard. It should be slender. Floating medium and work that in. All right. Now I want to do the wicker white with the citrus green and medium. Floating medium right there is important. So we're going to come right in here. And let's go back here, because what happens here is that we have more wicker white and sap. And I'm just coming right through here and adding a little bit. All right. So aren't those pretty? All right, do you see sometimes I did 2 strokes to get that whole look in there? All right, I did put a little bit more sap green, and I want it to come across the walk. See how I went over that a couple of times? Make sure, let's see how it's all dark. Now I need to come in here with some bright. There we go. All right, so we've got all this finished. Now we're going to go over here, and the last thing I'm going to do is work on some of these little guys here, and it makes it more interesting. And so the first thing I did is go here and pick up and do some really flattened brush with floating medium, and we are using the same colors we've been using, but I just flattened my brush. So we're going to use citrus green and sap green. The same thing as we're showing right here on the guide for you, okay? And then I did some irises, so I slid those up and I put a little bit of wicker white. So what I want you to see with this is that these go all the way up and over. So I'm taking them all the way up to that back because these are closer. Now, one thing I like to do when things are close like this is I like to get my script liner. See where, let's find that script liner right there. I like to get inky sap green. So I got water and I'm making an inky puddle. Roll the brush and pull out from that. Now you can't make this inky with medium. It will not get nice and thin. And we want you can practice right here. You can practice getting that thin look right there. And that's what we want. So we want to come in here. And I keep getting paint. All right. And I had these little white flowers right in here. And then I had a few out here. Now to finish this greenery in here, I'm going to take my scruffy brush, which I did not try. Remember I said I'm through with it? All right, so what we're going to do with this one is you squeeze it again at the ferrule, fluff it, and then we're going to pick up citrus and sap again. So I've got sap on one end, citrus on the other end, citrus green, and I'm going to come along here and I want really dark and light. See, I put the dark up against the bottom frame, and there we are. So some of the prettiness you can get also is you make some of this foliage white. See how pretty that turned out? All right, and the last detail, let's do, remember I showed you this using the corner of this brush. And I'm going to pick up yellow ochre and moon yellow and maybe even a teeny bit of white here. Okay, so let's dab with the corner of the brush. We're going to dab some of these stock flowers coming right from the green. See the white in there? Okay, now turn the brush over and just do little bits of moon yellow and wicker white. So we're going to keep picking that up. See how these little teeny guys here? And if you start with the ochre, you're going to get, yellow ochre is going to give you that depth. Okay. All right. Little dabs, and with you could do the same little dabs, but they're a lot smaller with the liner, which is what we're going to do right now. The last flower we're going to do is the iris, but I first, and all these are with the liner, but I first want to show you that I'm going to pull those little white blossoms, but I wanted to show you that you could practice this flower right here with the corner of the brush and see the 12 with the double loaded moon yellow and wicker white, and you can come up there with highlights and tap that corner up there, and that just is a good practice for you. Now the same thing I want to practice over here. Now this shows you that this was that purple, that's dioxazine purple, and look, you're going to go 1, 2, 3, and that's like a comma. Can you see that? Comma. And then I'm going to mix a little bit of white, wicker white, with the dioxazine purple and get that tone. And then you push hard and then lift. Push hard and lift. And it makes a perfect little flower when you dot the center. Okay? So we are going to wipe this off and then start doing our flowers. So I decide where I want these by this little bits of green that I did. So they're kind of standing up. So I like to put one. This one goes on the side, this side. And while I have the purple, dioxazine purple, I'm going to go and do all the tops of these. So I have some leaning over to the side and some going both ways. Push, left, push down, left, push down and left. And then let's do a couple right in here. But stay away from the bottom of these petals up here, because those, we still have to have room to put in the bottom petals. All right, and one little one way down here. All right, so let's do our lavender look. The brush already has the dioxazine purple in it, and now I just have to roll it in. And I've got it thick, so it's nice. It's going to come in here. Look, you're going to push down and then lift, and it's a comma that comes up. This one's a little bit smaller. This one, push, lift, push, lift. There we go. All right, we have another one here. All right, and so then we take the handle of our brush, or we can use the tip, but we can go right to our guide and it shows you that we're going to dip dot these little guys. All right, and since that was the last main flower, I'm going to take and roll my script liner into the white. And what I did with these guys is I pulled them down. Now watch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're just going to pull them down. And I did it kind of quick, so some are really light, some are heavier. And what's really nice is if you don't see a stem with the iris, all you do is make inky sap green and pull a stem. Grab those. There's a stem there, but I'm worried you don't see it. So here's inky sap green with the 2 script liner. And then grab it and pull anywhere where you don't think it looks like it's on the stem. All right. Okay, so what I want to do is go ahead and put some Prussian blue here because I want to shade this before we trim it out. And so there's so many little details in this, but this is a really fun project. This is the Prussian blue. I'm making sure it looks like the purple. It's hard to tell which is which. And so what I'm going to do is get the Prussian blue and some floating medium. So I also put some floating medium right in this corner right here inside my palette in that little cubby, so I can start with fresh medium. We're going to pick up some medium, and I'm going to come right here, and this paint underneath's dried, so I can come right in here and get some Prussian blue. Okay, now what I'm gonna, let's leave this up here and show you. I'm gonna come right around this edge. Too much medium. A little handy thing here to do when I'm floating is that I use a foam plate so I can see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to pick up less medium. And if I come along here, can you see all along in here? And I'm going in the corner really good. And it just made it look better to come along this edge. Not on the top edge. There. I did on these edges, we put medium gray and the licorice on the inside edge. And the outside edge. And it just completes your whole piece. So I got a little bit darker on the corners. See how I'm working right here on the corners? All right, so I do need more medium. So we put the medium here. And I'm going to take it on down here. And then I switch this blue out for green. Now, what I want to do is I want to get a foam plate and show you so you can actually see what I'm doing with the floating. I'm going to put a medium right here. And then I'm going to pick up with the corner of my brush and put the green, sap green that I'm going to be using. So I keep picking up medium and sap. Floating medium and sap green. All right, so one thing I am going to come along here and use the floating medium to float right along there. And that gives me some depth, and that puts this tree behind the yellow tree. You see that? And this I did a good job of putting it there when I did this, but over here, I want that to look like it's behind the barn and behind that yellow tree. All right, so then along here, we really need to bring the dark green in here, the sap, so that we have some nice shading along the edge. Go back and forth. And right here, because it sets it, so it's grounded to the ground, okay? I can also come in at this point. Let's get a little bit more, because I didn't notice I'm not down here enough. I can come underneath here and just put a few additional strokes that have some citrus green on this 3/4 so that you can see it a little bit better, okay? All right. I'm also going to come in here and just kind of shade the dark green along here, sap green, all across the bottom here. And there we go. I want to pick up just a little bit of this licorice just to show you how I line the inside of this. So I've got the clean 3/4, and I'm just picking up the whole flat of the brush on there. And so let's turn this way for you and up. I want you to see right here. You very carefully come in here and go right. It's got to be thin enough. That's so you maybe using fresh paint will be. This one's sitting here just a little bit, so I want to make sure that it's moving and not stuck. Okay, so I'm going to come right in here and run right down along here very carefully. And see, it cleans up everything that we got on there. And then on the top edge, we made the gray. I did the licorice right here too also. And then come in here on the top edge. And I want to show you this right here up close. We'll see how nice. So it's licorice, inside there, and then here. Now I have taped down in here before, but it's really easy to do if you have the right consistency on your brush to base coat it in there. All right. And remember, if it comes over too much, you just take your wet 3/4 and go back and clean that up. Now what I want to work with you on is, I'm worried that I've got wet paint here. So what I want to do is, let's go to the lettering. And while we're working on the lettering, I'm going to do it on a separate board, okay? And so we can see it better. So I'm going to put our project out of the view here. And let's work on some little tricks, hints and tricks that are going to help you with the lettering. All right, so what I've done so far is I traced on, and I've made some steps here with the template of Every Farm Begins with a Barn. There's 2 different styles of font, and we pair them together on these wonderful little sheets I told you about, right? So just a reminder, we have, this is all a script font, and these are more block. This is a larger script. So let's look at what's going to happen here. We're going to use the 2 script liner, and I am going to show you in each of our lessons how we address the type that we've got here that we're working with. All right, so I'm going to get some licorice out, and we are going to just address this top one first. All right, so I'm going to have this paint here, and I might put very teeny bit of water, but maybe not. Just have your brush dipped, laid on the paper towel, and then you're ready. Okay, so you roll this 2 script liners so that the paint, there's plenty of paint in it, but when you pull out of here, you're going to have a nice tip. All right, Now, the first thing is remember the tops and the bottoms are nice and straight, and because we use the ruler to get there. Now, I'm going to come in here and just address this straight line here on the bottom. And if you take and outline this, then it's easier to fill in. All right? So, see how this was outlined, and then the tops. I did the tops first. I'm going to turn it so it's easy for, I have a wet hand here. We're going to come right here and pull. All right, we have the square top. Then I'm going to keep plenty of paint, not too much, not too little. That's the key. All right, and so it's got the little square on each end. And if you do a nice job of tracing and using the ruler, it makes it very simple to come down here and do this. Now, you can learn to take this liner and pull on one side. Just do another one. And I could even do another one to make it on the right side to fill it in. But if you put just a little bit more pressure, it kind of fills in the whole spot there. You see this? So it's kind of delicate. You can go right in here, pull it in. I hope you can see this because the whole bit about tracing and getting my squares helped me so much to feel like I could succeed in doing these. All right. And then on this one, see it's all ready. We just push it down and pull. Pick up a little bit more paint, touch it, and pull. Now, we're going to do some script liner work to shade this one in a little bit, which we don't need on these because it's already licorice, it's already dark, and it's ready to go for you, okay? So let's look at this one. By using a little bit of white, all right, we can mix and get our gray. Now, it's not a dark gray. It's kind of a medium gray with wicker white and licorice. Okay, and I would not be mixing it afterwards. I would be trying to get this in there now. See, that's pretty good match. See that? All right, so what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to pick up the paint and I'm going to outline the shape. Now you need to get comfortable with this liner because the liner is wonderful. It just keeps letting the paint fill in, and you can push hard or stay up at the tip and make a thin line. All right, to be safe, if you come around here and outline it first, you're going to have a little bit more success when you're starting. All right, so I'm going to come around here and pull. I find it easier to pull than when I'm pulling away. I am pulling, but I'm pulling away from me. It's easier for me to always pull it to me. Now I want to put a touch of water so that I can pull and it's not sitting there getting pasty on me, okay? So we're going to come around and pull. Come around and pull. So what's going to happen is especially on these, this is a key that I wanted you to think about, is I want you to try to be right inside the tracing, right inside. Now if you trace, if you're painting right on top of that line, as you're going around, see I have a little lump there. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to get a little bit bigger to compensate for that. So by the time you do that over and over, you've then made this very large. And we don't want to do that. So it's okay if you have a couple of times you have to do it, but try to originally base coat inside. Now look, I can push my liner and pull it around, push it and pull it around, and it'll fill right in. Okay, so I'm going to come through here and I'm going to push down, and fill this in. But it's okay to come here and do a couple of strokes to make that happen. Can I tell you the most important thing about you doing the lettering is take a deep breath. Have you heard me say relax and paint? I absolutely would finish my painting, let it sit and dry, and come back when I'm fresh and spend some time doing this lettering, and don't push through it really hard. Like, wham, bam, get it done. I want you to take your time. I watch Chris do her lettering, and she's precise and beautiful, but she does methodically, step by step by step, until it's this perfect phrase. And I like, how do you do that? How do you get the ombre? How do you get the flames and different looks that she did? And she might not say she did flames, but it was kind of cool where the color came up, like from reds to yellows. All right, so I've got this all in there, and I want you to see that the next step is the white floating. All right, we're going to float the wicker white. And so I'm going to use, where in the world is my medium? Here we go. I'm going to have floating medium, okay? And then I'm going to side load this little bit of wicker white. Now that green's dry, or I wouldn't be going on top of it, okay? So I'm going to go back and forth and get medium and a nice amount of white. Can you please see that? The white's just on the corner. All right. Now what's going to happen is you want the right side to be white on all of these. All right. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is come around here, and that floating is kind of heavy compared to what I did there. So I can come and pick up a little bit more of the floating medium and soften that a little bit more. But the beautiful thing about this is, because if you have this base coated right, and it's with multi-surface, which has a sealer in it, then this is absolutely fine to wipe off. Now, that means this is still wet, so that means you let it all dry in case you do run into a little problem like I just had, and it's more than I wanted it to be, okay? So it's always easier to add more if I wanted to, and do less to start with, okay? So I've got too much white on there. I'm just going to shade to there. All right, then I'm going to come back on this side and do this top edge. There. Then I'm going to come right over here. And down all on this right side, okay? So I'm having, I keep doing it light, so I'm trying to pick up a little bit more white as I go here. A little wicker white. So I just wanted to finish one little spot right here, because this stops right where that starts, and then we come down along here. All right. Now, the next step was we're gonna highlight with 2-script liner, but first of all, we're gonna shade some licorice. So I'm gonna go back and get some more clean medium, work this in. Okay, and so we're gonna side stroke a little bit of licorice. Now see, we can come right here and then work it in until it's just a nice blend, but not harsh, okay? So now each one of these were shaded underneath. This is on the right. We're going to highlight the liner on another edge, and then we're going to come in here and do the licorice on the outside edge on the left side, okay, from this way. So that's where this shadow is going to come. So we're going to come right here. And see, the thing I want you to see is that this brush laid over the whole letter, but because that was just medium, it didn't mess up anything on the white. Inside here, this licorice went to there, and then inside here, I would do the inside side, right? And then right here, you would come right down here. Okay? Now I did touch that there. Now the last thing I do is what I did right here. So what I'd like you to see is that the white makes it, improves it. Then putting the licorice shading on the bottom improves it. And then look how the liner work on here even just makes it real striking. So let's get our liner, our 2-script liner, and let's get some inky here. Now I do want this inky. Remember on the others when we were base coating, we didn't really want it very inky. We just wanted a slight bit of water. Now I've got to roll this, and I want it to come out. It comes out like a fountain pen. Can you see this? I'm going to touch. I ran across medium there. I think that's why that looks transparent. Okay, so there's a difference in painting and stroking. Painting means I pushed it down and I stay down the whole width the whole time. All right, but what we want to do is we're pushing down and then we're lifting. And then you push down and then you're lifting. You don't get that big. But that's what I want you to think about when you're doing this. All right, so now what I'm going to do to my R is I'm going to come in here and I am going to come right where the licorice was and pull an extra line right there. All right, so you saw it was right here. And what we did is we can come right, stop, and come back over here. So I didn't get a good start. There we are. And then this also had more coming around here that I missed. All right, so let's look inside this curve up here. We're going to put it along here. Okay, so let's come right here and we're going to go inside here a little bit and on this side again. Okay. So now I want you to see that you need to take your time, and all this little detail makes it look so professional, guys. So think about that. Let's look here at the barn, how we wrote the barn right here, and see each of these lines on the underneath and on the right side. But there's the ghosting of the soft white, there's shading of the licorice down on the bottom, and it just looks like a completed, pretty project. Isn't that fun? Okay, so I am excited to see you guys letter your phrases right on your projects. But listen, remember, it's all dry, it's all finished. You trace it on very methodically, carefully, using rulers and things that you might not feel comfortable with. But when I see it all finished, I'm like, wow, that's exciting. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson as much as I enjoyed teaching it. That was so much fun. Thank you for joining me. We painted a landscape. My favorite part of this painting today was the barn, and I would love to hear what your favorite part was. Tell me how you liked it. Show me a picture. All of that would be great. And guess where you do that? You do that on our Facebook community, which is called Let's Paint with Plaid. And when you're sharing your pictures with us, write hashtag Let's Paint Challenge. All right? Until next month, let's paint.